Bazball came, Bazball saw, and Bazball was conquered. India rampant once again and eventually winning the series 4-1. And who would have thought after Hyderabad, many of you haters did think Ben Stokes and his team could do an encore of 2012, but they haven't. And let's, of course, dissect all of that in this cricket.com review. In an early show, I called it, go ahead, guys. Honestly, I asked Gurkirat and Nikhil yesterday, and they were like, no, I don't think that's going to happen, but it has. And we're doing this at the time of the presentation, so we're at you as early as we can be. Remember, there is going to be another live show, which is Nikhil's Fantasy Center, and that kickstarts at 3:30. So join him for that as well. Speaking of Nikhil, good to see you, bud, and Gurkirat as well. This is Gurkirat's official last show and all of that. So we'll have a cracker indeed. And we're also calling him on the Monday Night Live podcast. He's given his time to us then. So lots to love, not just today, but looking forward as well. First thoughts, India winning 4-1, Nikhil. The series started, in Jan 25th? Here we are, pretty much entering the second week of March. How do you think you reflect upon this series?
Nikhil's on mute.
Nikhil's on mute. Is that first time ever?
Like I think there's a problem with his mic because it's not showing that he's on mute, but there's some problem with his mic.
Maybe. We'll see if Nick can just fix that and come back to it. I'll ask the same question to Gurkirat. Paji, 4-1 speaks volumes of this team, especially in their own backyard.
Yeah, it's a win that should give a lot of confidence to the Indian fans, apart from the board, that yes, you can look at the next crop of players who are there who can really step up when the time comes, because there were many occasions in this series when you needed those youngsters to step up when the time came. Like, the eventual scoreline will look like that it was like a one-sided series, but if you look deeply, if you look at the situation of the game after day two and the third test, or day two in the fourth test, you'd know that this was not as easy as it came. And then the first two tests were also a lot about Jasprit Bumrah. I mean, the spell that he had in Vizag, when he took that six for and the ball to Pope. This test series could also be a good indicator as to where Kuldeep is. Like, if he continues to have good home series, maybe, who knows, he could be in the real contention to play overseas when India travel. So a lot of positives for India. They'd be very happy with Yashasvi's run scoring, Gill scoring runs, Sarfaraz chipping in, Jurel scoring runs and showing solidity. And even when Jurel did not have those big knocks, he showed enough solidity and temperament. So a lot to gain for India from this series. Akashdeep did well in that one spell, so they'd be pretty happy with how the series has gone, despite the initial hiccup, which you could say could have easily been avoided.
Okay, let's see if Nikhil is audible and agrees with Gurkirat in terms of his series first thoughts after India making sure of a 4-1 victory. Nix, do you agree with Gurkirat and some of the talking points there?
Yeah, 100% agree. And I was just reflecting how England have started in terms of, it looked like I could do something big, but then I was all on mute. So no noise then from England in terms of how to play cricket, which is good. And yeah, exactly, Greg. Bashir is the one who got me all shut up. But completely agree to Paji. The 4-1 is a scoreline which you will feel that it is, I don't know the right word, that it will feel that, okay, England could say it doesn't reflect how close it was, but it was only probably till day 3 of the third test or the fourth test. After that, I think Dharamshala denied them any moral victory chance as well. So, and that is good because it's also come on a surface that you can't say has always assisted spin bowling and all of that. So I think that should be the biggest loss that should pinch England, that these weren't the surfaces where you felt anybody could come in and come good. You had to back your skills, bat long period of time, and they only batted more than 80 overs twice in the entire series. And I don't think that's a safe way. No matter how much ever aggressive intent you have, you really are losing out on a lot of things just by not batting deep as well. So lots and lots to ponder for them.
Indeed, in sports fan, this is not technically a Bazball bashing stream, because let's give them some credit. Not many people come to India win a test. They did win that test, and they can, of course, add it to that win that they had in 2021. Of course, 2012 comes to mind. So we can't really blame everything in Bazball, but some of the facts don't lie. And some of the times you saw England in different passages of play in this Test series just makes you think whether that can actually be played across conditions. And India, of course, gave them a big, harsh lesson, you'd feel. After seeing DC's poor performance over the years, Paji is joining the DC camp soon. That is his next destination. I mean, trust me, I wanted that, but he's not even going down that direction. Can England claim any moral victory going on a sports fan? I don't know. Fell for Crawley, saying Vasant Narayan, and he also goes on to say that the Ranchi test was England's best chance if Australia were there, they would have seized the opportunity. And Kailash Fish saying third test, 220 for two, but up pitch, two batters well set, and then Root plays that shot and collapse happens. Fourth test, England should have won. Fully indicated. And look, let us know your thoughts as well in the comments with regards to how the series could have panned out differently. It could have been decider in Dharamshala, but India were ruthless. And of course, Ranchi and Rajkot as well. Paji, I'll come to your thoughts with regards to different things, but let's talk about Ravichandran Ashwin, guys. There were so many people writing him off with regards to how he was going about his business in this series. But 9 for 128 in his 100th test. He's ended up being the top wicket taker in the series, I think, with 26 scalps. And he's just silenced his critics once again. How impressive has Ashwin been in the series? And I know it's going to be remembered for Jaiswal and Bumrah, but Ashwin too, Gurkirat, was a key part in this juggernaut.
I thought in the first couple of tests he had a key part to play with the bat also. You felt that he was coming into his own in that second innings at Vizag, where he really started off well. And then the third test, you know, after starting off well again, I think he got his 500 scalp, but then he wasn't available. And in the second innings, India really did not need him in that test match. So yeah, it was a very funny series. It was a series of two extremes, because I think after the first three tests he was averaging more than 30, and that was probably only the third time in his test career while in a series in India that he was averaging more than 30. But the way he came back in the last two test matches, he took a fifer in the last game, he took a fifer today. So yeah, just continues to evolve and keeps finding a way. I just think that now a pattern that I've seen with Ashwin is that sometimes he's taking a little time to really get to his best in important series. You saw that in the BGT, you've seen it here, and probably India would like him to not take as much time. And I'm not sure if it is because it's because he's played another format before, or it's because he's reaching that age where you need a little time to get into rhythm. But there's been a pattern that has been developing. The first test or so, or the first three innings or so, he does take time to get into it. This series, there's also a question of how he was used, because we kept talking about how he should be brought on with the new ball straight away, especially in the second innings. Whenever he was brought on with the new ball, he struck immediately, and that helped him a lot. But there were times like when Duckett had that 150, he came on to bowl after Duckett had already crossed 50. So that doesn't help a bowler as well.
Yeah, amazing from Ashwin. I was just looking the plethora, the stats that was available on cricket.com. Remember, this was the best test spell, you could say. 9 for 128 in his 100th test, because Murli got 9 for as well, but for 151. So well done, Ash. I want to ask Nikhil about Ashwin and how many big wickets he got this series, right? It was not cheap wickets by any stretch of the imagination. He got, I think, Crawley out thrice, Pope out thrice. I think it was Duckett as well, who had a huge number, and not to forget Ben Stokes today. Nick Knight mentioned it, Nix, about Ashwin and him preempting the batter's release shot. And that was so evident in most of the dismissals throughout the series. That just goes down to how much of a thinker he is. And we run out of adjectives to talk about Ashwin in this regard, right?
Yeah, exactly, and it's also just the point that Paji also talked about in terms of the usage and the entry point. Now, when you're tossing the ball to Ashwin when Duck is already on 50 or 40, there is a lot more pressure on Ashwin to not err. in terms of you're thinking or probably bowling with a completely different mindset as opposed to what happened, say, today. But Duckett tries to sweep, he can't do it. He tries to defend, he can't do it. And he says, okay, now I need to put the pressure back on Ashwin. It's a completely different mindset as opposed to, say, a period of play where Duckett is a far more confident at the wicket and then he's facing Ashwin. So I think that also played a massive part in terms of how late Ashwin came into the picture. And again, new ball to Ashwin in the second innings is something that we had been screaming. So that also took a time to happen. But it's also a lesson for maybe Ash, as Faji said. Sometimes you may not get the new ball. So then what are their options? And again, we are speaking of a guy who's taken over 500 wickets, that we keep throwing challenges at him and he keeps finding ways. That's because he's very open and he wants to evolve. So I think that's probably a very good way to probably summarize how good Ashwin is in terms of you throw him new challenges. He's found a way to just find a way to work. It may not be the same thing everywhere. He said that in the press post match bit as well, that every service is trying to have a different type of bowling action because that is what is required on such kind of wickets. And therein also lies the answer for England, that you cannot bat the same way on every kind of cricket wicket. It may work at home when there are made to order roads, but it is not the case everywhere around the world.
It isn't. It really, really isn't. And it's food for thought that from Nick's point of view about Ravichandran Ashwin. I want to move the chat to another key all-rounder who we thought is going to play a huge part, not just with the captaincy, but generally with the bat and the ball. We saw him bowl for the first time in the series yesterday, and he got the counterpart, Rohit Sharma, out. I'm talking about Ben Stokes, guys, because with the bat in hand, good Kirat, it is an alarming statistics, this, which features in the ticker right now. Lowest average for an England captain in a 4+ test series this century. Look at the names. The infamous list. Nasser Hussain, 10.16 against the West Indies in that 2000 Wisden Trophy. Then you saw Michael Vaughan absolutely being carved open versus South Africa in 2003. And then Ben Stokes, under 20 in 2024. And Ashwin, Kuldeep, probably will give him nightmares for the next 1 month at least. How do you sum up the series from Stokes? The batter, the captain, and the bowler. Should he bowl more in hindsight?
Just before Paji takes off, Ben wasn't the Ben we thought Ben would be. Ben eventually became the Ben we thought Ben would be.
Yeah, not a big Ben by any stretch. But Paji, thoughts about Stokesy?
I think his captaincy also would have come under far more scrutiny than what it did had it not been for the result in Hyderabad. It's one thing to keep keep backing someone like how he was backing Hartley, and you get result sometimes like that. But I had spoken even in the second test and the third test that Rehan Ahmed needs to have a lot more control to play as a specialist spinner, because many times he did lack that control. And you can talk that you are not looking to bowl maidens, you are happy conceding 4 boundaries as long as you take a wicket, but that's not how the game functions as much as you would like. So as far as his batting is concerned, I don't think there can be any excuses either, because these pitches have been probably one of the best to bat on in the last couple of years or 3 years. So there are absolutely no excuses except for the fact that it was Ben Stokes getting outskilled by a very good Indian bowling attack in terms of the spinners as well as pacers. Did have his moments, first innings in Hyderabad, first innings in Vizag, where he was batting well with the tail. But yeah, he will really need to figure out how is he going to tackle these challenges when there is good spin bowling on display. He got out to Ashwin, I think, 3 times in the series. Kuldeep had him in a mess. Got out to Jadeja as well. So should be disappointed. As far as his bowling is concerned, again, if his body was not going to take it, you should have had your bowling attack like that. I mean, they went in with just 4 bowlers, with Root being the fifth bowler. Somewhere I think they also need to sit and see that does Root bowling that many overs really help them in terms of the returns of Root the batter, because you really don't want to overbowl Root to that extent that his batting starts taking a hit. That is still his primary skill, and so many times you could see that the confidence in Root as a bowler was a lot more than the likes of Rehan Ahmed and others. So yeah, a lot to think in terms of these strategies. You just and it's a mistake that not only England or Ben Stokes have made. It's a common mistake with a lot of touring sides, not just to come to India, but even if Indian sides are traveling abroad. Just because you look at the pitch and the conditions, you feel like, okay, I want to play the extra spinner or the pacer, not realizing that you will not be able to get the best out of that extra spinner or pacer. You might as well play the better bowler between a rookie spinner or a pacer and an experienced counterpart, which I think England did not on more than a few occasions.
All right. Speaking of Ben Stokes, he's just given out some pertinent quotes from the post-match presentation, saying that they were completely outplayed this series. And look, fair play to him coming out and having the humility to accept where it all went wrong for England in this long winter for them. We'll talk about more such things. We've spoken about Ashwin. We've spoken about Stokes. There's, of course, Anderson to talk about because, man, the fact that that guy's got 700 wickets, how can we do a show without not talking about Jimmy Anderson? And Kuldeep Yadav has won the man of the match, courtesy his fifer, and then I think he got a couple of wickets as well in the second innings. So well done to KD, as DJ calls him, behind the stumps. There was some crazy stump mic chatter between Johnny Bairstow and Shubman Gill as well. It was quite ridiculous. I don't know if you guys check that out. Go find it somewhere on Twitter. Let's talk about Jimmy Anderson then next, because 700 wickets. I mean, where does this man stop? I mean, obviously he's just in touching distance of Shane Warne's 708. Can he go on to even overtake Murli, or is that wishful thinking?
It does look wishful, but then he's been able to play so long. He's 41 and he's fit fine, and they've all said he's probably looking in the best shape that he's been in terms of bowling. And I think England have also been very protective of him, uh, and I don't mean it in a bad way. That they've looked after him well in terms of they haven't overused him at all at any point in the recent times, and which is probably how they want to go about their stuff with him. Uh, and I don't know how much to read into his contributions in terms of this series, but England do play a lot of tests, so I will not put it past him to definitely go past to one of them. Murli, I think, is probably a bridge, a few ashes too far for him to be able to do something about it. But kudos to him, though. 700 isn't something that I think is going to be breached for a long time. It's going to take someone really very young to start and then probably have a career over 10, 15 years to come even close to this. So, and that for a spinner, I think is maybe possible. But for a pacer to last this long and take 700 wickets, I probably think we've seen the last of it.
I think you not only need a prodigy to get close to that, you'll also need someone who has that hunger to keep going at it. Because I still remember what Nasir Hussain told said at Jimmy Anderson's 150th Test match. He's like, playing Test cricket is difficult. If it is more difficult even if you are a fast bowler. Getting to 100 test matches is an achievement. 150 is even better, but when you keep considering that all of it you've done as a fast bowler, when the skill set is such that you will get injured, it requires a lot of hunger, it requires a lot of discipline. Yes, you can say, okay, he's protected, etc., etc. All of those are things that are true, but that protection, or that cover of protection, will not mean anything as long as there is not the hunger to come out and perform and do the job. So there is that. Yes, you could attach a few asterisks that, okay, maybe he should have bowled a little more in the series at times when England really needed someone to step up. But that is how England have been operating, because they feel that they'd rather use him in the best manner possible rather than grind him on in situations where they feel the match is already gone. So yeah, you'll need a prodigy with an extreme hunger, probably the hunger to play 20 years, which is not easy.
And plus, with Test cricket also not going to be played that much compared to how it was in Jimmy's time. And you look at his career, 21 years, 2003 was his first Test, and he's played what? I think this is his sixth test tour to India. So he's bowled against Tendulkar, he's bowled against Kohli, he's bowled against Gill, and those are three different generational batters. And we talk about his 700 wickets, 434 wickets out of those 700 home conditions, fine. But he's also managed to kind of get wickets elsewhere. You look at even his wickets breakdown against teams, 149 wickets against India, which is the most for an opposition for him. And it makes you think about what is your favorite Jimmy Anderson moment. And I'd like to open the chat to tell us as well in tests so far. I know he's not retiring, but I just think about him, think about certain wickets. Where do you think you'll remember Anderson the most? Which spell was it? Which wicket was it? I know Mitchell Johnson when he said, "Why are you chirping now, mate?" And then Anderson gets, I think, the other batter out of the other crease, which is really, really memorable. He's dismissed Tendulkar, like I said, Kohli. Paji, I'll start with you. Actually, I'll start with Nick. So let Paji think about it a little bit. Your favorite Anderson memory out of all the 700 scallops?
I don't have a bowling memory that hurts me as much as his 81 that he scored with the bat. I don't think I am ever going to go past two. See, for both Cook and Jimmy, sometimes we've enjoyed watching them bowl, whether it is Cook's doubles and all of that. Seen a lot of centuries live, thankfully. But his wicket of Ishan Sharma is something I wanted somebody to cover up. Did not happen in this series, but hopefully someday it will happen that the Indian captain who is in bowling will dismiss an England tailender. That is for Alistair Cook. And for Jimmy Anderson, the 81 that he hit at Trent Bridge with Joe Root, very difficult to go past that. Very haunted that how did you allow Jimmy Anderson to score 81 runs? But in the bowling, I think there are a lot of good ones. Even the one that he had in India, where he got Gill also out with reverse swing on the previous two. So he's bowled in important spells time and time and again. Probably most celebrated will be the 2014 and 2018 battles with Virat. And the difference is in 2014, the first chance led to a wicket. In 2018, the first chance probably led to a drop. So that's maybe how the luck covered up for Jimmy. But yeah, I think for me, the 81 still haunts me more than the 700 wickets. Sorry.
And that 81 had so many reverse sweeps. They call him the Burnley Lara over there, Jimmy Anderson, but fantastic. Why saying, let's talk about Gurkirat Paji in the CDC journey. Chuchant also saying, Paji, Batao, plan. All you lovely listeners, yes, we're going to get emotional, but on Monday Night Live's podcast this week, because Gurkirat features as a special guest, it's only fair for us to do that, talk about all kinds of stuff, his past, his present, and the future, of course, and all those fun memories he shared with us down the line. Paji, what was your favorite Jimmy Anderson memory? How will you hold him in high regard? Talk to me.
I think when we talk about that England series in 2012, there's obviously the mention of Panesar and so on. There's a mention of Kevin Peterson's 100 in Mumbai. There's the mention of those 300s by Alistair Cook. But I thought, Anderson in that Kolkata test match was key to opening it up. Like that test match could have been drawn, but Anderson bowled as well as I've seen anyone bowl. And for me, see, you've seen a lot of fast bowlers who are mercurial and who display such bowling spells which you feel you can't even believe that it's happening. They just keep bowling peaches and peaches and peaches. But with Anderson, what you see is that there's a robot like consistency. Like he'll keep bowling the ball at. That is why if you were to ask someone, okay, bring or recall a ball, you'll struggle because so many of those dismissals are very methodological in nature. He'll set up the batter, bring it in. But still, if you were to talk about that, there were the initial deliveries that he bowled. But yeah, that 81 and then that Kolkata test match, I thought he bowled really well and does not really get enough credit for that series win for England.
Okay,
even
super.
even 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 in Pakistan in recent times, just the way he was bowling tightly and getting reverse, it, to get wickets on those Pakistan tracks is not easy.
No, indeed. And Anderson, look, so many memories. And all you guys have at least rightly said or wrongly in the chat below what your particular moment was for Jimmy Anderson. Some CDC trivia coming your way with regards to the googly in just a bit. But let's just, of course, talk about the man of the series a little bit. It'll be unfair for us not to talk about Jaiswal again, because what that man has done is just carve out an absolute name for himself in this series. Because even if you look at the stats, and top run getter, obviously, no prize for guessing, is Jaiswal, it's ridiculous of what he's done. This series in particular, over 700 runs. We can look at how many sixes he's hit, for example, 23 or I think 26 come to mind. And not to forget the two double hundreds he had in display as well. So just a word on Jaiswal, what the future lies ahead for him. Nikhil, you first.
Yeah, have you already called a century in first session for him in the future? If you remember that right, we already have a 300 prediction for him, and even a bigger one if he probably bats 2 days. But again, we are not going the English way in terms of hyperboling someone just for the sake of it. But we've seen that in this very series. And the biggest takeaway from me in terms of his runs and the amount of runs is the manner in which he's been able to adapt to play to the situation. This side had the bowling at all times, but not the batting. It's missed few of its most important players from time to time. And for a youngster playing his first debut home series, to be able to adapt, yes, he's played all of his cricket here, but then these are high pressure games with lots at stake. So for him to be able to just play and always you've never seen him and felt like he's trying too hard or what is he trying to do. You're always sure that okay, this is what he's trying to do. So even the defense is compact, the attack is very aggressive, and the sixes. I mean, for donkey's years we waited for somebody to just smash spin. So that was a very very refreshing sight in terms of. So two things stood out for me. One is his tempo at which he's batted in most of those crucial knocks, and his hitting against spin. Whether it is moving away to smash over covers or just really not letting the bowler settle when he wants to go big. So I think that is probably something that I'm very keen on seeing in terms of the big turns and hit investment. Hopefully, he can do more of it.
Okay, Jaiswal, according to you, Paji, I mean, averaging 89. I know it's not the best attack in the world, but he still had to not just accumulate, but also put the bowlers to the sword. And he did that. We've seen aggressive openers in the past. Maybe a Shikhar Dhawan for a small time did it. We saw it with Sehwag for a long time. But this boy is a real find in Test cricket. And just before Paji does have his say, 111 people. That's an important number in cricket. Nelson, if you guys know. So we want Nelson in terms of likes as well. This is Paji's last show, so show him some love. All the true cool cats will actually like this video right now. So please, it helps with the algorithm. And then Paji, you can continue about Jaiswal, please.
Yeah, so you rightly mentioned that wasn't the best attack on display, but you have to look at the situations as well. I mean, the innings in Vizag in the first innings, India were behind in the series. They lost Rohit early, and yeah, it could have gone either way if not for Jaswal's double hundred. That India could have really been on the back foot. And one thing that this English side has done well, ever since McCullum and Stokes have taken over, is that forget forget attacking teams when they are on top. They've also been able to attack teams when they've been behind. So if they are one nil up in the series and pretty much in the game in the first innings, they could have really pushed India a lot, and from there on funny things could have happened. So that innings was a brilliant one, and I thought one of the best part of that innings was that how he played Anderson and gave him the respect. Yes, he eventually got out to Anderson after scoring that 200, but by then he had done the job. And then similarly, when he scored that double hundred in the second innings, I think it was in the third test. Just the way he started to bat for declaration after taking his time, it just showed you that he has had gears. And he was pretty disappointed after getting out to Root in the first test in Hyderabad, because he knew he missed out on a big one. And you could just see that hunger. Two double centuries, then another one. He was pretty disappointed with his dismissal against Bashir as well. I'm sure that the next time he is in that situation, he will keep it in his mind that yes, while I do want to attack and take on the bowling, I want to be a little more circumspect in terms of not giving it away. So yeah, it's a series that will again help him a lot, and it spoke volumes of his temperament. there are going to be challenges in terms of facing better attacks in maybe more difficult conditions, where both his inside edge and outside edge will be will be tested, but that is for later. For now, you have to appreciate what you saw and hope that he goes from strength to strength.
Indeed, and lots of people are rightly asking how will he fare, especially in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. I mean, we did of course see him in the West Indies, and he's showed that key trait that any Mumbai batter would show, any really, really good batter would show, which is hunger, and they can't document that more. 124 people watching, please like this, because Nick's also will be doing an amazing fantasy preview for you guys. So jump on at 3:30 p.m. today if you guys want to win big on the cricket.com app. It is the Asli Fantasy OG space. So all you lovers of the fantasy cricket space, go check out Nick's personally and at 3:30 later today. Sanjay asking, what were some of the biggest takeaways from the series? We'll take some of the questions from you boys right now because lots of random ones as well. For me personally, I think it was Jaiswal, it was the spinners, it was the debutants, but Bumrah also, boys, amazing. Just the fact that we shouldn't take someone like Bumrah for granted, because what he's done, even in this series, Knicks, most wickets by an Indian pacer in a bilateral series at home since 2000. Bumrah in this series against England, 18. The previous best, Umesh Yadav, I think 17 against Australia in 2017, and then Ishant Sharma, 15 against Australia in 2008. Now, he's a world-class operator. We rested him for the right reasons in that fourth test. But how do you see Bumrah being used in home tests going forward? Will it only be against the big dogs, i.e. England and Australia? Can we already not see him play against Bangladesh and New Zealand at home, or will he still be needed from time to time?
I think you'll hope that India will plan this. And the way I talked about England protecting Jimmy in the last few years, I hope India also do that with Jesse, because truly Jesse Jaisa Kohli. I mean, there is not even an iota of doubt about what he brings to the table. Even today, the bit about captaincy, that Zach Crowley wicket. The ball spins, and then he's like, okay, let's just do one thing. Let's just get the short leg to leg slip, and then the ball just immediate reward. That just tells you sometimes these plans work, sometimes they don't. But the proactiveness, everything that's always been there with Bumrah in terms of the thinking capabilities, and something that we've talked in the past about learning quickly. In terms of, we've had so many pacers who probably stuck to the, this is my length, this is what I can bowl, this is what I'll do. But with Jussie, if he has a few off overs, suddenly you see him just completely just make that adjustment. It's like a switch in his mind that now I can't go full. I'll go length, and this is where I'll stick, and that's where he stays. And then if you want him to bowl a Yorker, he does that as well. So I think the Pope ball was actually the ball of the series, no matter what the world wants to make about that Stokes dismissal. But in terms of his usage, it is very critical. The New Zealand and the Bangladesh, with no disrespect to both of them, these are the times for you at home to really start looking to build the attack, because in this series, I won't say accidentally, but you've found people who have been able to step up. But that may not always be the case. So it's important to give Akashdeep a good run because he started well. See what you want to do with Mukesh Kumar. Finalize all these plans before you tour Australia, so that you will need Bumrah there. So it's best to keep him fresh, use him for select series, because that's the best for him. We are not saying that we doubt Bumrah or we doubt his body of work or his fitness. Just ensure the workload is well managed, because you will need him in the T20 World Cup and you will need him in the test as well. So you have to just walk that line very, very carefully.
Yeah, and Gurkirat has often mentioned that Bumrah is a cheat code in T20s. I just want his impression on Bumrah in tests going ahead, and what he's, of course, proved again. 19 wickets, including a 6 for, again, economy, a miser economy of 3.04. Akshit, by the way, if you're just joining us, we've spoken about Jaiswal. We're talking about Bumrah right now. We've already finished discussing Ashwin, Anderson, our first thoughts, and more random questions to take in another 5 to 6 minutes. But please like this video, guys. Lots of you guys are tuning in right now, even though it's a Saturday afternoon, which is always good to see. Paji, on Bumrah, cheat code, yes, in T20s, but even in tests, the amount of control that he brings and he gives the captain is just immaculate, even on flat surfaces, dare I say.
Yeah, and that is where you separate the good from the best, or better from the best. And I think one concern area for India in this series would have been Mohammad Siraj. The lack of control that he displayed, especially in his first spells. You saw him that he came back and did well in the second spells, but so many times you really need the other bowler also to start off well. I don't think that he will play both the series. I think even if you want to have him in the squad, have him around the bowlers you want to develop, and so that he can share his insights or his brains with those bowlers. Because eventually, if he plays, if you have him in the squad and if he plays, then even the captain's tendency is to go for that cheat code. Like, why do I need to figure out a plan when I have a bowler who will do everything? So have him in the squad, but don't play him. Let even, because as a captain also you need to prepare yourself for life without Bumrah at some point of time, because there will always be a possibility that you will have to play without him or your best players. What do you do then? So yeah, I think they should not really play him both the test series. Maybe can play him against New Zealand, depending upon how New Zealand's form is. But apart from that, yeah, it should be a series where again India look to develop or give chances to the next crop of fast bowlers they are looking at.
Indeed, and Sanjay also rightly mentioning this comment, as you can see. Meanwhile, there has been some breaking news from Jesha on Twitter and a brand new test match scheme that he's proposing to all the players, and that's just broken through. We'll just tell you all more about it if you guys are tuning in. Now, the BCCI have announced the Test Cricket Incentive Scheme to help the financial growth of cricketers who've prioritized Test cricket, which is fantastic. It does the world of good for the domestic game in India. Now, the scheme adds an additional reward structure on top of the existing match fee for Test matches, and this was confirmed, like I said, by Jesha, who announced the decision through a post on social media. He went on to say, guys, and this is very particular and pertinent for all you Indian Test match fan lovers out there, because I quote Jay Shah right now. I'm pleased to announce the initiation of the Test Cricket Incentive Scheme for the senior men, a step aimed at providing financial growth and stability to our esteemed athletes. Commencing from the 2022-2023 season, the Test Cricket Incentive Scheme will serve as an additional reward structure on top of the existing match fee for Test matches, which is set at INR 15 lakhs. Now, for example, assuming there are 9 tests in a season, if a player has played less than 4, it's not applicable. So you don't get any incentives. But if he's played 5 to 6 out of those 9 tests, he'll get 30 lakhs per match and then 15 lakhs per match as a non-playing incentive. But if you are in the playing 11, you'll get 30 lakhs. So it works like that. So if he's played more tests, more the money indeed. Now, this, of course, comes in the wake of the BCCI directive last month that he had asked Indian cricketers to give precedence to the participating domestic cricket. We saw the Ayers example, Ishan Kishan's example as well. And I just want to get the boys' thoughts about it because Chikuji was asking it. I think Y also was asking this earlier, saying, what are your thoughts about this whole news? What do you make of it? Obviously, it does a world of good for the longest game, the format that we all three love the most, let's be honest. Nix, I'll start with you here. Is it just money and incentives which can actually be, yes, materialistic, but sometimes it does make you think, okay, this is a move in the right direction?
Yeah, I think it is a move in the right direction, which is good. You want to just put it out there that if you're playing only this format, you don't have to always worry about the money aspect. We will take care of it. The one thing that I want to be added to this is the separate pool bit, separate pools bit. Because what I don't want to happen is again the same set of players being used in all three formats. So if only those players are going to be the ones who are used, then I don't know how much it's going to benefit because it's already part of the setup for a longer period of time. But say something like a previous regime example, if it's a Numesh Yadav or a Rahane or a Pujara who are only playing one format, then it is very good for them also that because they are not in other formats, they're getting their chances. The test specialists are being backed. So I think coupled with the incentives, I think the selection also, if it goes, continues to be in terms of prioritizing, picking people from that format. This is very, very good. So am I only bit is the selection bit because if you end up selecting from the ODIs and others, then you're invariably also going to play the same set of people. So I think just to put it in terms of Test cricket terms, pick the players from that format, reward them even more if they play more tests, I think it'll just work hand in hand.
Gurkirat, when you look at the conveyor belt of Indian Test cricket right now, even if you rewind 5 years ago, they had a clear India A path line, and then that was hampered by COVID. And you saw the likes of Siraj, Gill, all those kind of cricketers come to the Indian Test circuit. Now it's almost like you look at the series and the debutants in this one, your Jurels, your Sarfraz, your Padikals, your Akashdeep. IPL, of course, has progressed their profile and their stature. Yashasvi is a good example of that too. So, how do you kind of separate the two? Because it's super important that players who get picked from the IPL don't get carried away into white ball cricket and they actually prioritize domestic cricket and the longest format of the game. How much do you agree or disagree with me?
I think it's really difficult to have a one size fits all theory here, because uh, as players also sometimes you will prefer one format over the other, and that's not just because of the money that is involved. That is one factor, but it also comes down to the skill sets that you have. Now, you mentioned about Sarfaraz's selection has had nothing to do with IPL, because he's not had a great IPL. He's been just knocking the door down. Similarly, for Akashdeep, you can say the same. Jurel, yes, maybe you can say IPL has had an influence. And what I also mean to say is that it's impossible for it to not have an influence, because while there are numbers that you look at before selection, you also look at you also have the so-called eye test, and which is there for a reason. Because if you were to only select players on the basis of numbers, a software could do it, right? But you really need to also identify what is it that you're looking for in a player. And sometimes how a player looks is enough to tell you that this player could be someone for the long run. So it's very difficult to draw that line, because there's also a mismatch between the level of quality at the Ranji, Vijay Hazare, Syed Mushtaq Ali, and with the India A and the IPL level. Now at the IPL, you will get to face the likes of Rabada, Jansen, Cummings, Stark, Hazelwood, etc. Now, while you may not be required to defend against them, but in IPL you can still see if a batter is confident on or can hold his own ground against those quality bowlers. So that speaks a lot about the temperament and the confidence. So I just feel you can one can talk about not basing selections on the basis of IPL, but I'm saying that it is not entirely possible to not look at it as at all, because there are going to be some substantial and qualitative points that you will only be able to judge on the basis of seeing those player against such kind of bowlers. So it's a fine line to walk on, and the balance to be found is something that can be looked at.
Hmm.
Just I'll just add to Paji's point in terms of uh, being able to find that balance, because see, if you look at somebody like a Sarfaraz Khan and say that look how he played in the IPL, now that won't be the right measure to look at him as a player, because you playing Mark Wood in an IPL game is completely different to you playing him in a test game in Dharamshala. He can afford to take his time there. Now that won't be the case when he's playing the IPL. So you just have to be that clear in your mind that a Sarfaraz Khan can play out Mark Wood in a test match format, but he may not be needed to do that in the T20 format. So whenever those selections happen, they have to keep in mind in terms of there are other things at play. If you want to watch the player, pick him in the India also, and then look him in that format. So again, to this point, that the balance is important. You can't say, okay, bhai, he's not able to play IPL attacks. How will he play Test cricket? But it has got no direct relation in terms of whether you face that as well. So I think just that bit, that it completely changes the game of play, right? So I think that is also something that's very, very important.
Indeed, it just makes you think about the greater good for Indian cricket. My lunch has arrived, and it's a kind reminder to end the show very, very quickly. But, boys, more appreciative comments about different things we've discussed today. Vasant Narayan has this to say. Chachant also having his thoughts and why as well. We've been pretty chatty this afternoon. Really, really appreciate it from that regard. And yeah, we will miss Paji, but you can't miss the MNL. Like I keep saying, go check it out already. The 33rd episode will be out on Monday, obviously. But I was going to tell you, I'll go check out the previous episode, some sensational guests. And we'll get Paji as one more of them. Right, we'll leave it there because Nix has to rush off, eat lunch, and do his fantasy cricket show at 3:30 himself. So tune in for that. Show Nikhil some love. If you guys haven't checked it out, what are you waiting for? Because ultimately, it's just listening to his thoughts, making a team on cricket.com and winning big. How bad could it be? Trust me, there are some hot tips that he has for today's game. Paji, it's been a pleasure. Nikhil, you too. I'll see you guys in the Monday Night Live. And that will be Paji's official show for all you cricket fans out there. We have one more sensational show. But from an Indian England series perspective, it's all done from a content perspective. Now, just the WPL and the business end of it, and then the IPL. And can't we wait? And cricket.com to give you some more live shows. Thanks so much for tuning us into this series. The coverage of India England has been fantastic. Nearly every live review was, of course, inwards in excess of 1,000 views, and that's what we've really intended to do with all our content. It's time for me to go tuck into some North Indian, apparently. So let's go do that while you guys can check out cricket.com and follow us on social media. Cheers. Good afternoon.
See you.